You finished the task. You replied to the message. You sent the email. You did what needed to be done. And then, somewhere between closing the laptop and lying down, your mind started again, not loudly, just quietly. A thought, then another, then a question you didn't ask out loud, then a version of a conversation that didn't happen the way you replayed it, then a version that did, then a version that might, and you're still awake. This is familiar, isn't it? Not as a problem, just as something that happens, something that has always happened. You've probably stopped questioning why by now. You just wait for it to slow down. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But there's something your mind hasn't told you about why it does this. And it's not what most people think. Overthinking gets described like a flaw, like something broken, like the mind running too fast or too loud or out of control. But that's not really what's happening. When your mind loops through a conversation, it's not malfunctioning. When it builds scenarios you know will probably never happen, it's not being irrational. When it goes back to something from 3 days ago and turns it over again, looking for something it might have missed, it's not wasting your time. It's doing what it believes it needs to do. Your brain is trying to prepare you for something, for anything, for the possibility that something might go wrong, and you won't be ready for it. So it runs through outcomes. It tests possibilities. It imagines what could be said, what could happen, what it would feel like if things fall apart in this way, or that way, or the way you haven't thought of yet. It is, in its own way, trying to protect you. The problem is that it doesn't know when to stop. There's a specific kind of thinking that happens when you're an overthinker, and it doesn't feel like thinking. It feels like experiencing. You imagine a difficult conversation, and your chest tightens, not because the conversation happened, because your mind made it real enough. The emotion followed the thought the same way it would follow an actual event. Your nervous system responded, your mood shifted, and then you had to recover from something that never occurred. This happens more often than you probably realize. You carry the weight of conversations that haven't taken place. You feel the sting of rejections that haven't happened. You rehearse apologies for mistakes you haven't made yet. You brace for disappointments that may never arrive, and by the time the actual moment comes, you're already tired from living it in advance. It affects small things too. The way you read a message twice before sending it, not because the words are wrong, but because you want to know how they'll land, what impression they'll leave, whether the tone is right, whether something in them could be misread, whether you're asking for too much or saying too little. The way you sometimes go quiet in a conversation, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're already 3 steps ahead, thinking about how what you're about to say might be received, might change things, might open a door you're not sure you want open. The way you leave something slightly unfinished sometimes, the email drafted but not sent, the plan made but not started, because starting means committing. And committing means the outcome is now, real and measurable and possible to get wrong. None of this is dramatic. None of it is obvious to anyone watching. It's just there, running quietly in the background of everything you do. Here's what most people don't see when they look at an overthinker. They see someone who can't make decisions, someone who worries too much, someone who needs to relax. But underneath all of that, there's usually something much simpler. Uncertainty feels dangerous to you. Not in a way you would necessarily say out loud, not in a way you might even fully recognize, but somewhere along the way, not knowing what was coming started to feel unsafe, and your mind found a solution. If you think about it long enough, from enough angles, you might be able to see it coming. You might be able to be ready. The overthinking isn't anxiety for no reason. It's a strategy that worked once, maybe a strategy that made sense. In a moment where being unprepared felt like the worst possible thing, and now it just runs, even when the situation doesn't call for it, even when the stakes are low, even when the thing you're turning over and over in your mind at 2 a.m. is something that will not matter in a week. The brain learned a pattern, and patterns don't ask whether they're still needed, they just repeat. There's something else hidden inside this. Overthinkers tend to feel things a little more than they let on. The thinking isn't separate from the feeling. It grows out of it. You think about the conversation because the conversation mattered to you. You replay the moment because you care about how it went. You imagine the future scenario because the outcome has weight for you. The mind goes where the heart is already standing. And so the overthinking, as exhausting as it is also a kind of evidence. Evidence that things mean something to you, that people mean something to you, that you're not moving through your life on the surface. It doesn't always feel like that. In the middle of the loop, it just feels like noise. like a record skipping, like something you can't turn off. But that's the thing your brain has been hiding from you. It's not noise. It's not malfunction. It's not a character flaw you need to fix or a weakness you need to work through. It is care. Running without direction. It is sensitivity. Looking for somewhere to land. It is a mind that takes things seriously, trying to do the one thing it believes will help, which is to think until it understands. Think until it feels safe. Think until the uncertainty resolves into something it can hold. And it rarely does. The uncertainty doesn't close. The scenarios don't settle, because the mind can imagine an infinite number of outcomes. And so the loop continues, not because you're doing something wrong, just because that's the nature of what you're working with. Imagination doesn't have an edge. It doesn't stop and say that's enough. You've covered everything now. It just keeps going, into the next possibility, and the one after that. So the thinking continues, and you stay up a little later than you meant to, and you carry something that isn't quite worry and isn't quite fear. Just this low hum of things, being considered, turned over, looked at from another angle. There's no instruction here, no steps to follow. But maybe something shifts slightly when you understand what's actually happening. When you stop looking at the overthinking like it's evidence that something is wrong with you, and start seeing it for what it is, a mind that learned to prepare, a mind that is trying, in the only way it knows how, to make sure you're okay. It doesn't always help. It often makes things harder. But it was never coming from nowhere. It was never random. It was always, underneath everything, an attempt to protect something that matters. If you've ever felt this way, you already know it's not a simple thing to explain. And yet here you are, and somehow it made sense. You're not the only one who lies awake with a mind like this, and maybe that, at least, is something.